Welcome to the Marriage Be Like podcast. We're your hosts, Kenny
and Kenya.
And we are so glad that you are joining us today. Listen, this podcast is here to discuss love and relationships, life topics, and how to navigate through it all.
Disclaimer, we are not specialists or counselors or professionals in these fields. We are a married couple who's got 27 years of life experiences under our belt. We hope to open some discussions, build communication, and plant some seeds. So sit back, enjoy, and let's have a conversation and grow together.
Welcome back. We are so glad that you are with us.
Welcome.
Listen, this episode of the Marriage Be Like podcast, we have invited our friends,
the Powers.
Yes, Trevor and Latonia Powers. Now, this is a previously recorded episode, so so you're going to hear that part of it. But we're excited because we're going to be talking about military families.
Yes, military families.
Right. So then you'll be, I tell you what, you're going to be really entertained. We're going to be really entertained by the stories that they tell, but there's some really helpful information that we share in this episode. So please, particularly those who are in military families, please pay attention to this one so that you can get the resources that you need as we navigate through marriage be like in the military. We have special guests here with us today. These are the Powers people, the Powers
family. The Powers people.
So look, you introduce yourself to those watching. They just know that you are the Powers people.
Powers people. No, I'm Trevor, and this is my wife, Latonia. Last name is Powers. We don't have any special powers. Trevor Powers and Latonia Powers.
Hey, have you seen that Supercell?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Sorry, y'all. Sorry.
I have no idea what Supercell is.
Oh, you need to check that out.
Yeah.
Is it scary?
No.
Won't
be disappointed.
Won't be disappointed at all.
Is it funny?
It's a series about people who live in Great Britain who discover that they have special abilities and powers.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that sounds kind of cool.
Yeah. See, you know what? I'm sorry. This is not what we're talking about today, and so I'll take responsibility for that.
You don't have to. It's
but no. I need to. I do need to say this.
Questions since she brought up the show.
I need to say this. See, because I appreciate you explaining that to her.
Thank you, Trevor.
You're welcome.
Because if I tried to explain it, she wouldn't watch it.
And why is that? Why would you watch it?
Because he watches all dark stuff.
Oh, okay.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
He looking at me like, does it?
Well, when she said he watches dark stuff, you kind of went like you agreed with that. Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, what?
No, that was y'all's interpretation.
You're not on my Netflix account.
Why are you looking at me like
That response was like he does.
And see, I didn't take your response. And I was still looking at him like, what you talking about?
Anyway. All right, so listen, we brought Trevor and Latonia Powers here to talk about serving in the military, okay, and how that affects marriage and decisions that we make and things like that, how we navigate through that. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've never served a day in my life. Maybe I played a fool. I've served. Right.
And that is a maybe. You're right. That's a maybe.
Maybe. Like I don't serve food.
When was the last time? All right. And we'll keep that maybe.
But we're not talking about me.
We're not. We sure are not.
We're talking about Trevor and Latonia. So, all right. So you told us who you are. Mm-hmm. But now we brought you on to the podcast, and we want you to share just a little bit why, okay, we have you here talking about military life. Okay. So tell us about your service and things like that.
All right. So I am a 24-year Army veteran in the Alabama National Guard. And so I serve in what the military calls a reserve component. And what that means is I serve 1 weekend out of the month and 2 weeks out of the year, unlike my active duty counterpart who does it 24/7 year round. So,
Okay. I really didn't know what was happening. I just know sometimes you're gone, sometimes you're back.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, as far as I know, it could have been just like your daily job. You know, sometimes you just travel. So I didn't even know that you were so active. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And then he's gone for a week or so.
Yeah, that's the 2 weeks out of the year that we call our annual training period.
Oh, I see.
And now, even though they advertise it as 2 weeks, sometimes that could be 2 weeks, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever, whatever Uncle Sam, whatever the mission calls for.
Right.
Yeah, we do have those annual training periods that we have to do. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And 24 years in.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, wow. You've been longer than I've been alive. So
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and say thank you for your service.
It is my pleasure. I enjoy doing it.
Thank you for your continued service. I'm going to pretend like we didn't hear what he said. I look great hair on his face.
I get treated so bad. Why you treat me so? Okay. So now, Latonia, we hadn't heard anything about you. So let's talk about you for a minute,
Okay.
because you serve.
No, I'm not in the military. I'm a military spouse.
Oh, okay.
So I
Okay.
serve in that capacity. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's all you gonna say about yourself?
I thought there was another question. I was like, no.
She has faithfully served her 24 years as a military spouse.
Okay. Well, what are you willing to share with us
I
about?
was going to say, tell them, get to their love story, how they meet. And that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So yeah.
I will let her tell that story.
Uh,
Normally I tell that story, but I would like to hear Latonia.
her version of it.
Yeah.
See, stop.
Oh.
Stop. This is about them. Right?
I just, the example was right here. I just had to. Go ahead, Latonia. We ready.
How did we meet? Purely by accident, coincidence, whatever. Because we were not traveling in the same circles at all. There was no reason for us to run across each other at all. Really, I don't even know what part to start at. What had happened was,
Okay.
All right.
yeah, while I was a student at Oakwood, I was rooming with two of my friends. And one Saturday night, we were just out driving around, goofing off and whatever. And this car of guys pulled up next to us, and we just started talking to them and whatever, exchanged numbers and whatever.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, that's everybody's like, oh, that's how y'all met. Nope, that's not how we met.
That's not-
Oh, okay.
I was not in that car.
Oh.
No. So the guys called us, and we all were just like, we just told them the deal. We're not really trying to talk to y'all. We were just out. And two of the guys were like, cool, no problem. Never heard from them again. Couldn't pick them out in a lineup today if I wanted to. Don't know their names, nothing. Right? One guy decided that he was really interested in my friend. And I don't know how this escalated to the point that it did, but he would call her, and I guess she would talk to him. And then one day he called, and she really was not there. It was not us making this up. Is so-and-so there? She is not here. And he would call back shortly. Is so-and-so there? She is not here. And he did this all day long.
Oh, he really
And
was
then he was really,
Yes.
and thought we were playing, because then bro shows up on our doorstep with his friend.
Oh.
And we're just like, okay. She still ain't here. And why you done brought this other dude with you? I don't know why you're standing on my doorstep, And this was the guy who brought him last year.
Oh.
So him and this other guy and this guy are standing on my doorstep. And I don't know why you here, and I don't know why you brought this stranger to my door. And so, yeah.
So you were a stranger.
I was the stranger.
Yes.
Right? And so
really happens that.
so the back half of this story is that I ran into the guy who is an associate of mine, and we hadn't seen each other in years, and we had passed each other at the bank, and so we kind of caught up. And he was telling me, he was like, "Hey man, I'm seeing this girl, and she has a
Was he
roommate."
seeing her?
Yes.
All right. Okay.
And he says she has a roommate, and I was like, "Well, cool. Let's hook up, right?" So I go and I pick him up, and we get to their apartment. Tanya opens the door, and this look crossed her face, and I'm like, "What in the world is going over here?"
It's kind of like y'all about to double date.
Yes.
She's looking at crazy folks. That's wild. This girl ain't here.
Yes. And so, needless to say, after all of that, I had to, evaluate what was going on, and I had to apologize. I was like, "Look, I had no idea that this was going on, right? That this dude was crazy, and he was, this, that, and the other." And I'm trying to explain how I got dragged into this. And after all of that explaining and talking on the phone, kind of developed into us getting to know each other. Yeah. Okay. And that's how we met.
Okay. Now that's a strange story. Not even gonna sugarcoat it.
No, it is. It's really strange. Because every time you tell it, people are like, oh, he was in the car.
Yes.
People know that.
And it was so funny. Her roommate at the time, probably about 2 years ago, they were here for alumni weekend. And that story came up, and she thought I was in the car, and I was like, "No, I was not in the car."
Yeah, no, you the third wheel over the next day. Man, that's so weird, but cool all the same time. Nobody else has y'all story. I guarantee you. Wow. Okay, so then after you all continued to talk, then you all dated for how long?
Man,
Before we got married?
Mm-hmm.
It was a while.
yeah, we dated for a
It
while.
was a while. Like years and years.
Oh, okay.
Years and years.
Years and years, yeah. We dated
Okay.
for a long time.
Okay. Now, were you serving at that point?
I had not. No.
Okay.
I think. I joined the military in 2000, and I think that next year is when we got married. The year after I had enlisted.
Okay, so that means that you've been married 23 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So then, so you don't remember what year that was when y'all met? That you dated?
I'm thinking,
What, 90?
Well, she was in college. Yeah. 90s.
probably it was,
Yeah.
it was in the mid-90s.
Yes. Because I came in 94 and I met you then in 94.
Okay.
94, 95, that school year.
Yeah.
Yep.
So 97.
Seven. Mhm.
So yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So
Wow.
all right. So then,
No, that was some years before y'all married.
Mhm.
yeah. But now here's the thing, right? That means then that you,
Oh, sorry.
that's not the point.
I realize I'm just back when we just stop.
But we have been asked that question.
Oh, okay.
Did anyone directly ask you the question?
No. Interesting. We were at a couples retreat, and who was emceeing that? I can't think of his name. They've asked him to MC it, and because he's a comedian. What is his name? Jeff.
Okay.
And because when people kind of tell their story, and we tell people when we met and when we got married, and he was kind of the joke was kind of like, hey, y'all make sure y'all keep them two together because they get lost and then find each other again. So
Yeah, that's funny. So okay. So then you enlisted in 2000.
2000. Yeah.
And then you got married in 2001. Okay, so then you were already serving at that point. And how did you feel about that? Starting off.
I was fine with it. I mean, I never really had a negative view of the military. Some people do,
Mhm.
My grandfather served, my uncle served, so it was not a thing that I was just like, people just really saw he decided to go to the military. I understood why he was doing it.
Right.
And so I was cool with it.
Okay.
Okay. Did you have any reservations? I mean, look, I've been in this thing for a year now, and I'm finna get married.
Still newlyweds, really.
Well, I ain't even got married.
Oh, yeah,
yet.
that's true. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, what were your thoughts in that? Going into that, I mean,
Going into the military or
going into the marriage, yeah, or considering that. I mean, obviously, I assume that you propose. That's not what we're going to get into. But I'm curious at what your thought was.
Well, I think I really didn't have any reservations about it because we had talked about it, right?
Okay.
Before we had got married, and kind of explained to her just like she said, she understood why I was making the decision that I was making.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of eased, my thoughts, maybe, if I had any negative things going on in my mind about it, just us having those conversations about it, just made it easier. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So were you prepared? Were you prepared for her to have some reservation because of it?
Yes. But I think at that time, I had already made up my mind what I was going to do.
Okay.
It because of, I guess things that I had been dealing with up until that point, and how I felt that this was going to impact and change my life.
Okay.
And so, it was just one of those things where I've made this decision.
I just need you to get on board.
And if not, it is what it is, and, I don't know if you remember my testimony from, a couple of nights ago. And it was the same thing with my immediate family. My immediate family was not on board, with military prior to that. And but I think my two sisters went in before I did. And so them going in kind of just broke the ice with everything else. And so, and I saw what it did for them. And so, I'm doing this.
And I guess I thought that when you said that your family really wasn't on board with it, because I know y'all as a military family, because I knew that your sisters were there. So that's an interesting point. Why weren't you okay? Why weren't they okay with you going?
Because at the time that I was, because I was the first one out of high school. And so when I graduated high school, around about that time was when the Gulf War was going on.
Yeah.
And so, and considering the time frame that my parents grew up was during the Vietnam War. And so when you see what your friends that you grew up with were going through and what they came home with, of course, you don't want that for your own children, understandably, right? And so now the Gulf War is happening, and now you have your son talking about he wants to join the military. They were absolutely, no way. So by the time 97, 98, I think, is the time that my sisters went in. And it was interesting, like I said, because I graduated before them looking to go. But they ended up going. Now, my baby sister went in straight out of high school. And then our middle sister went in, I think, a year or two after high school. Okay. So they went in active duty and had already been in for about a year or two. And then at this point, I'm thinking to myself, nah, active duty is not really, for me. So I'll do the reserve component. And then that's when I went in.
So now being in reserve, you have to educate me on this, right? What are the chances of being deployed and being gone?
Oh, it's just as likely as that, a guy active duty component.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. And so had you been deployed? Have you been deployed? Have you been on I guess what do you call it, tour?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you had?
Yes.
Okay. And how long were you out?
A year.
A year?
Yeah. My deployment was a year, 2009, 2010.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So Tanya, let me ask you this. So during that time, right? I mean, because at that point, so you've been married, what, 9 years? Right? And at that point, now I know your daughters, right? So I don't know, they were born in, right?
Yeah. Tree was like 4. Yeah, Tree was little. Yeah, she was little.
Okay, so great. Then how was that, knowing Trevor was gone, right? And you're there, almost, I mean, did it feel like a single mother type of deal? I mean, help me see that. How was that? How did that feel?
It's a difficult adjustment because you're going from 2 parents being in the household to 1. It's not, I think, as difficult as the single parenthood because you still have both incomes, so you don't have that component to worry about, like you would if this was a breakup or something like that. But like I said, the challenge of navigating all the things, because all the things still have to be done. Still got to get, grass still needs to be cut, house still needs to be taken care of, kids still need to do all the things they need to do. You still got the dog, car still breaks down, all the things happen, and you don't have your partner there, to help. But then you have the added component of, in the back of your mind, worry for the partner, you know, because this is a battle situation. You know, it's not that he's out in Tahiti on vacation or enjoying himself or something. You know, there's a very real threat. You know, and then there were times when he would have to go, and that's all we knew. You know, because of his job. You know, saying I'm going to be gone. I don't know how long this is going to be. I don't know where he's going. I don't know when he's coming back. You know what I'm saying? Because of his job, they had to keep all of those things quiet. So it's just like I'm gonna be dark for a while. You know, and so in that time, you don't know, you know.
I didn't consider that.
Yeah, you don't know what's going on.
So how do you manage? I mean,
Stressful.
yeah, how do you manage that? I mean, sanity.
Yeah, no.
You know?
I mean, prayer is a big thing. Because I remember before he even left, you know, we found out he was being deployed, and just even leading up to that was very stressful because you don't know. You know,
Just the fear of the unknown.
the fear of the unknown, or, you know, because you know there's no way that he's going to go and come back the same person. So you've got that, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, you don't know who's coming back. You know, some people, I mean, because you don't know what they're going to endure, you know what I'm saying? What's going to happen to them is if they're coming back, that's a very real thing. And so I just remember being so stressed out at one point. I mean, and I get stressed out and my whole starts here in my shoulders and everything, but my whole shoulders, my back, everything is locked up. I'm going to the chiropractor. He's like, there's nothing structurally wrong with you. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, okay, so this is stress, you know? And I really had to be like, okay, Lord, I'm stressing over something that I have absolutely no control over. There's nothing I can do about any of this. I can't protect him. I can't make him come back the same person. I can't determine none of this is within my control. And so literally I just had to release it. This is your son. You know what's best. And I'll just have to let whatever you're going to let happen. And we'll just deal with it when he comes back.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, and we, I mean, I'm sure everyone has had the experience of someone who has left. And, you know, one, if they make it back, you know, but then when they do come back, man, chances are they are not the same person. You know, now I'm not going to ask you whether or not Trevor's the same person.
I asked Trevor though, were you the same person, Trevor?
I was not.
Not
I was not. And I can be open enough to say that prior to leaving, I was fooling myself.
Oh.
Right. Because, you know, I would tell myself, I'm not going to allow this situation to change me.
Yes.
That was a big fat lie.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I did.
Saying that.
Huh?
I remember you saying
Yeah, I told him that. I told him back prior to me leaving that, you know, this is not going to change me, you know, and I'm not going to allow this situation to change me. And I lied. And I was lying to myself. I was lying to them. And I did not come back the same person. I did not. No.
Wow. So I imagine then that was a whole nother adjustment, you know, coming back. And, yeah, so.
Was the year long?
It was. It was. For me, I don't know how it felt for him. For me, it was because it was very isolating, you know, because we're not in a community that has a lot of large deployments, you know what I'm saying? And then the way that they were deployed, they're attached to a whole other unit. It wasn't even like their unit was being deployed. So we didn't even have the resources that families normally get from the military in those situations.
Oh, wow.
You know what I'm saying? So you don't have that. I didn't know the spouses or families of any of the guys that he was going with. So there was no, you know, let me call Linda or whatever. Yeah, there's no connection there. And then the people here don't really get it. You know what I'm saying? They and it's not saying anything negative about them. You know what I'm saying? They just didn't get it. They just don't understand. They've never experienced it. To my knowledge, none of them have any people in the military. So they're just, this whole thing is completely foreign to them. You know, so it was just, it was very.
When you say here, you're talking about in this local area, even though we have.
Yes, but this is a retirement community.
Yeah.
This is not an active duty community.
And so, and I think what she's saying, and I guess I'm kind of trying to shape it a little bit, right? So when a unit gets ready to deploy, the military I don't know what the other branches may have, but the Army has what we call FRG, Family Readiness Groups, right?
Okay.
So that when the unit deploys forward, there are some soldiers who stay back, and then there are counselors, other resources available for that unit to get through that period, right?
Okay.
So when
That's awesome, actually.
Right. So when I deployed, and I think it may be, I don't know if they were calling it the Yellow Ribbon Program or something like that, or Yellow Ribbon Events. And so to have those resources available to the families, right? But what made my deployment unique, it was I didn't deploy as with my unit. I got plucked. Me and 3 other guys got plucked out of our units, and we were attached to a active duty component, right? And then we went forward. And so sometimes in a situation like that, those families may kind of get lost in the shuffle, right? Not to say that there are not resources there, but you kind of get lost in the shuffle with those things. Now, had we deployed with the units that we were with, those things probably would have been more available, come together better. Yeah.
Wow, this is interesting. I keep forgetting to look at the camera. I'm just like,
No, it's fine. No, and that's not to say that they didn't have things. They did have things,
Yes.
and I made sure that the things that we were able to, I took the girls to and made sure that we participated in.
Okay.
But again, I don't know those people. You know what I'm saying? So it's just us and a group of people that we don't know,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, okay, so now you talked about the girls, and you said that the youngest was 4.
I think she was 4 at the time.
Yeah.
Which was, yeah, probably.
So how did you explain that to her? I mean, and I know at 4 years old, comprehension of that probably was very limited. So then maybe to Zoe, I mean, like, how did that conversation go?
I think we just told them what was happening. They're all pretty smart. Daddy's gonna be gone for a while, and I mean, they were not foreign to him being gone because of those 2-week things. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
But it was just that this one's gonna be longer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, you don't want it to be one of those situations like maybe one of their friends, and their dad is gone.
Yeah.
And we're laughing about that only because of the
Yeah.
correlation, but I mean, because that's not a funny thing. But you don't want them to think that way about it. So yeah, that's wow. So now let me ask you this. All right. What are then, I mean, we talked about Trevor coming back and not being the same person. So what are, if you want to get into any kind of specific challenges, what I'm saying, that result out of that. And I imagine then not only for Trevor coming back being different, but then,
the relationship between them and then the relationship
with the girls. Yeah. Yeah. Was there, I mean, like
components.
anything in particular because curious at how we navigate around that and still grow. You know what I mean?
I'll without really getting into a whole lot of details, I think I'll keep it in this lane. So one of the things coming back was everything is about timing and movement and getting to where you're supposed to go and doing what you're supposed to do, right? So when I got back, that's where my mindset was. And I couldn't understand, hey, when we had to be somewhere, get dressed, get moving. And it's funny because, being a reserve soldier, you kind of live in your family world for a while, and then you get plucked out of this world, go into
the
other world. Things that didn't bother me before were getting under my skin, and it's just like, it's, hey,
You're in a house full of women.
yes, and we got to move, we got to get moving, and I'm like,
This is not what
are y'all doing? And man, and so that's like one of them.
Okay.
That was really starting to
Because
get
your regimen away was boom, 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 boom.
yes, yeah.
So
That's
okay.
understandable.
Thank you for saying. And I've never served in the service, right? sorry, give me just a second here.
Oh my God, the dramatics.
Because I feel that way. You know what I'm saying? Like when I need to be somewhere at a certain time, right?
Yeah.
Did you see that video?
No. So your issue is when you need to be somewhere at a certain time, it's me.
No, it's everybody.
Because I had a military dad and we believe in neatness. So I don't understand. I mean, I'm just saying.
This,
Let me bring a little let me take my moment. Hold on.
I know, right? Take your moment.
no, okay. So, all right. So, did you have anything? I mean, again, and I would respect, how what you're willing to share. But
Trying to think. I can't think of anything in particular right now. I do remember that, and I think it was. Okay, yes, I do. Because over that course of the year, I'm in charge of everything.
yeah,
I was just about to ask that. Yeah. Mhm.
And so having to make space for him to come back in.
oh, wow,
Yeah,
yeah,
that can be difficult because I'm in charge, and now here you come trying to,
And not only come back in, but come back in with this, and not to say I guess anything bad about drill sergeants, but coming in with this
mentality.
with this commander,
Yeah,
drill sergeant, I'm the boss, and what? Yeah. You can see where the conflict
Oh, yeah,
is starting to. Yeah.
yeah.
For a girl dad, I don't see how that was gonna work out.
Now, you know what? Now, I will have to say this. That must have, as you said before, a girl dad, right? I mean, that must have been really difficult because, we got boys, right? And, for me to leave my boys behind, hey, toughen up, you get over it, right? But I've always said to anybody, right, that if I had a girl, if I had a daughter, I'd be no good to nobody.
That's why God didn't give us any.
Right. I mean, it's common knowledge. My wife knows that if I had a daughter, she would find her way in between us. Easily. I mean, I might even put her there.
and we went through that. All of our girls are like you said, are daddy's girls, and they especially when they were little, we would always have the Tanya would be like, "This is my husband," and of course, they would do the little cute thing. "No, this is mine," But Tanya hit on something. When we were talking about getting ready to do this, that I think one of the things that kind of made this easy for us was technology and being able to Skype.
Awesome.
And so, doing those, sometimes daily or weekly calls back home so they could see me, that, daddy's still here, and of course, you have those conversations. Hey, what are you guys doing? And, I share with them what I'm doing. And then, of course, the call always ends with, "Daddy, when you coming home?"
Yeah.
And so, you kind of start the countdown thing. But, technology and Skype at that time made it.
I'm glad you brought that point out because that helps keep the relationships at least. And it's not a situation of he's just gone and it's just black and it's just, we just don't know. But at least you were able to communicate and they were able to see you. I think that helps with kids just because there is, in the back of the mind, like you mentioned, there's some hope there.
So I imagine then early on, it was probably more difficult than it is now to deal with the military aspect in your home, right? Something that we've had to grow to. How long do you think it took before things seemed to got easier in that process?
I know, because it's still, I think you just adapt to it. You know what I'm saying? Because there's still times when we'll miss a birthday, we'll miss an anniversary, we'll miss a whatever, some other important occasion because he has to be with the military, you know. And so in that way, you know, it's still annoying. It's like, yeah, I'm ready to get up because I'm tired of this and stuff. You know, that kind of thing. But I think we just adapt. It's just like, it's just a thing that is. Move on, what you know, gripe about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I don't know. Kenya, you brought up this one of the questions in this whole process, right? The divorce rate in military, and I don't know those numbers, but
I
what?
actually looked it up, but I didn't write it down. I forgot.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
so what is it then that the two of you? I'm just talking about the two of you have to do to keep from going in the wrong direction with your marriage. You know what I'm saying? Like, what keeps the bright, sunshiny days, the sunflowers, and you know what I'm saying? What keeps it good? And I mean, if it ain't that great, you know, hey, don't tell me. But
We gonna pretend like it is a podcast.
I think we've learned over time to just communicate better about how we feel about things. You know, for a long time, like I said, during that transition, we would not necessarily communicate those things, and could kind of bottle a lot of stuff. And we kind of called that protecting the relationship. You know, and so while you're protecting the relationship, you're destroying the people.
Yeah.
You know, and so we really had to grow in and took a long time to even get to that point where we could acknowledge that, you know, and then just be able to say, this is what's been going on, you know. And so to communicate honestly and let the communication take the relationship wherever it's going to go after that, you know. And you just have to kind of release, I guess almost like I did when, you know, when he was deploying, you just have to try to release the control, you know what I'm saying? Because you can't control that, especially when you're not communicating honestly, you know. And we just had to let that go. It's just like, look, we'll communicate honestly about where we are, how we're feeling, where we want to be, and then wherever the communication takes us after that is where we'll land.
That is a lesson in itself, because I think that people in general need to know that lesson, because oftentimes not communicating, you're thinking you're protecting the other person, or even like you said, the relationship, and it is totally the opposite.
Yeah.
You really just pull it down right on in there, and you don't even realize it because in your head you're doing what's right.
Yeah.
It's a lot of denial.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did an argument? What made y'all change your mind and say, hey, you know, this ain't working. Maybe I should open up and speak more?
I think it started. So when I got back, I probably had been back maybe a year or two.
Okay.
And so Tanya reached out to one of the elders at the church. And I remember I was at work, and so I get a phone call, and the elder said, "Hey, how you doing?" I was like, "I'm good. Why?" And so it was like, "You're somebody really important to you, who really loves you, and you know, thinks that you know, you and I should, you know, just chat." No, I don't need to chat.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah, thanks for calling. And so the person was like, okay, but just know that when you're ready, the door's open. And so, of course, I get home and, you know, I wasn't mad, you know, I wasn't upset, but I think it made me kind of think about, okay, you had to go outside of what we've been doing.
Okay.
And what's going on? What are you seeing that made you do that? Right. And I think that was the catalyst to start, that thing. Yeah.
All right. That was actually pretty good. Good job, Tanya. I like how they tippy toed to the conversation, though.
yeah.
Just want to let you know.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, all right. So what are some of the what you believe to be misconceptions about being in the military or being in a military family?
I think what you see on television in Hollywood about the military is not what the military is. That's one big misconception. And I think the second one, especially in our community, the Black community, is that the military is a white man's game.
Yes.
And it is not. You know, the very and let me back this up.
Okay.
The military today, as it is, you know, maybe at one point during segregation, that maybe the military and the attitudes towards the military probably was like
And
that.
when people were drafted.
Drafted. And so, but the very nature of what our mission is and what we have to do, basically, you know, just bottom line up front, putting your life on the line.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have time for that foolishness. And so I think those for me are probably the two biggest misconceptions about the military. Yeah.
Well, I get that. And I said, yeah, strongly because I've heard that actually. And my family is quite military driven on my dad's side.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was younger, my cousins are older, but I had several who were in the service armed forces together. I remember hanging out at their houses and being like, so, you know, and just being able to come back and see them and they'd be gone, seemed like forever.
Yeah.
And then they'd show up again. There were points where I would forget their names because it felt so long. Of course, I was a child, but it just felt so long of a time period. And I don't know today how long they've gone, but it was just, it wasn't for a long time that I knew that my dad served.
Okay.
Of course, he was in that generation of drafting,
Okay.
but I didn't know that until one day he was like, yeah, I was in the service. Wait, what now? It was just something he didn't talk about.
They didn't.
And so even when, I'm the oldest of three, but I have two younger brothers, he was like, okay, well, make sure you enlist, make sure you at least sign up for something just in case. Even though when they were born, there was no just in case because you sign up and you go or you don't sign up and you don't go.
Right.
But in his head, it was still, they could draft you at any time. So then there are I guess I felt like I didn't necessarily have a positive on the armed forces, if that makes sense. Because all I knew was they take my cousins
They
away.
take people away. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
You know, that's so mine is slightly different. I mean, my father didn't serve. I mean, my father now is a retired pastor, right? So, but my grandfather did, and not very much conversation. We don't talk a lot about his service. I do know that his unit was the very next unit that would have gone to Pearl Harbor. And they had stopped right before they got to him. And so he didn't go. So I knew that much. But yeah, I mean, growing up, I was not encouraged.
Yeah. I mean, I was well grown before I actually knew the good things about the army.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
uncle, my dad's oldest brother, was actually the second generation of the Red Tail.
Tuskegee Airmen.
Yeah.
So those men taught him. And he stayed there for many, many years and left and then would go back and then left and would go back.
Yeah.
But I was well grown when I actually found out, or maybe in college when I actually found out those kinds of stories. I was like, nobody. And growing up, I didn't even know him
Yeah.
because he was always gone. So that was just how I made it in my head, but they probably could have actually told me great stories. I didn't take it that way, if that makes sense. So I think that a lot of people actually have a negative sense into the armed forces, and I'm glad today that it's changing over. That people, because it's such a sacrifice. And I'm happy that y'all do, because I couldn't. You know what I mean? So I'm happy that somebody does. Somebody has to.
Yeah. So we appreciate the insight that you guys are willing to share with us, because oftentimes, I know for someone like myself, I don't have a level of appreciation because I just don't know. how that works. And then, you know what? I learned a lot about you guys.
Me too.
Yeah,
We're good. We're good.
yeah. I mean, because you know what? So Kenya and I we talk about folk, right?
Y'all do too. It is what it is.
So, but because what was it? What was it, a few weeks ago? We hung out, and I was like, yeah, they cool people. I said, they quiet. They like,
That's funny. It's quiet to me.
so they quiet.
So we were cool people.
Well, that's not what I meant, man. Come on, that is.
I do understand.
But I mean, it's,
Honestly, for me, yes, because
They were
I feel
cool?
like no, they were cool individually. We had never gone out together as couples.
Yeah.
So I know you separately, I know Tanya separately, but I don't feel like I know you very much.
That's okay.
And I'll give an example, because when we left and we all hugged, I was like, I don't know if I should hug Trevor. We've never hugged before. Or did we hug before? I'll shake his hand. That was why.
now I will say this though. I will say this. Y'all hurt my feelings when we was on that boat. We were at the pool and we were sitting out there. Y'all came out and I was like, oh, they gonna come out and hang out with us, and then y'all left.
You were all the girls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We were on the cruise, so I mean, this is a little bit of backstory, right? We were on this cruise, so we go to church together. Church had a cruise, and Kenya and I were sitting on the deck.
Yeah, because I need for you to make sure that you shape this. Because now and then I'm gonna tell you what happened.
What's the problem? Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we were sitting on the deck, Kenya and I, and we were just chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool and all.
See, your wife already know where this story is going.
And so, and then Trevor and Tanya come out, right? I mean, we're out just by the pool, chilling. And then Trevor and Tanya come out and they sit at the pool. And 5 minutes later, they left. They didn't stay out very long at all. And I was like, what? They got mad at us? Like, what in the world? I mean, they weren't even sitting next to us, so I guess, I shouldn't have taken it that personally. But, they left. Anyway, they were close enough that we could have a conversation, but they left. Anyway, so what's the real deal, man?
Like you said, y'all was out chilling. Looked like y'all was enjoying yourselves. It was like, well, don't want to interrupt this chilling. What look like soon to be Mac session that's about to go down. So we've been invited ourselves over here. And it's like, I think we need to uninvite ourselves.
Wait a minute.
Is that what we came up?
It was like,
What?
Like they done came over here and then they just.
He was like, let's tell the real story. I'm like, oh.
Come on. We were
That's why I said you shaped it just nice, because that's exactly how that came off.
We're not inviting, babe.
You're not inviting now. Oh,
I was so sorry.
y'all were in tune with each other, and it was just and like you said, because that's the what that was. It was like, hey, because now we were like, hey, look, let's they over there, let's go over there. We never had this chance that we get over there. It's like. It ain't a third wheel. It's like third, fourth, fifth wheel. I was like, let's be like a little towel and
Let them keep back.
it's all fine. Yeah, so exactly, nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
Some
You
people
never know how you put off.
right, but that's the thing. But like some people don't even pick up on that kind of stuff. You trying to vibe with your girl and everything.
So let me tell you this, right? Let me tell you this, because I and I can appreciate that. We can laugh about it or whatever, but I appreciate that. Now we've been married for 26 years, right? Is that
Yes.
right? Okay. But we have gone out on dates, and we sit at let's go get something to eat, and we're sitting there, and you can see other couples in the restaurant, right? And what I find really strange is we sit there and we enjoy each other's company. We're laughing, we're talking. She's loud, I'm not, And
Exactly.
and then we look at other couples and they not saying anything to each other.
Yeah.
I mean, it is quiet. I mean, and even if they're not looking in their phone, they just looking around, and I'm like, what kind of marriage is that?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I need to be able to, we are friends.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
We've actually been in a situation where we were at a restaurant and we were the only ones talking to each other.
Wow.
We literally stopped because we was like, wait a minute now, there was no noise. It was, you could hear the music undertone and you could hear us. And so we stopped and were like, and everybody was, or just looking off. Oh. Of course, that didn't stop us. We just kept on being loud and talking. But, I'm just like, yeah, I don't want that kind of relationship. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Now there are times when, I'm like, shut up. No.
Not the truth. Not the truth.
That's good.
All right. So look, again, we appreciate what you shared with us. And do you have any last tips to share with anybody that may face some of the same challenges? And anything else that maybe we didn't even touch. And hey, you know what? People need to know this.
No, I just what Tanya said earlier. I think a lot of stuff is just communication. Don't hold nothing in. Be open, be vulnerable, be transparent. With the person that you said that you want to spend the rest. And just like you said, just people in restaurants not talking to each other. Just being open, vulnerable and transparent, and just be, communicate. Yeah.
That's a very good point. To the person that you said you want to spend the rest of your life with.
Yeah.
So then the rest of your life should be something that you can talk about together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that communication thing is something that Kenya gets on my case a lot about. I may not be the best communicator.
He's just a talker. There ain't no real, the communication versus the talking are two different things with him.
Yeah. And let me say this, and I'll look at the camera when I say this, especially if there is a military family that watches this episode or hears this episode. If you are having trouble in your marriage, there are resources out there. And the main resource out there is Military Source One. You can go to military one source. Yeah, I think it's Military One Source, what did I say the first time? Military One? Yeah, no. Yes, One Source, Military One Source. And that is the one-stop shop for anything that a military family is dealing with. If marital issues with your children, if you're having career, issues within your military career, your spouse needs counseling for, whatever it is that the soldier, the airman, the sailor, the Marine is going through. That's
literally one
spot.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And reach out and take advantage of that. Yeah. Military One Source.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we put that on there.
Okay.
So that you can see that. So it'll be right there.
And I'll make sure that I go back and get the right URL for it. Yeah. But take advantage of that.
I think I would, we talked about just misconceptions of the military. Just let people know that the military is a viable option, and not to take other people's word for it. College is not for everybody. There may not necessarily be a trade. I think the military can be a great space to find out who you actually are.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah. We laugh and joke about our oldest daughter when she went.
That's right, being talked about.
That's bad. Yeah. It's fun, but
If you want to ask a question,
she
Having
was
kids
funny.
in the military.
well,
I know. We do.
Our oldest daughter and
Her husband.
her husband are in the Air Force.
Okay.
Our youngest one is kind of trying on the military right now. So she's, the school that she's at right now, she's trying on ROTC.
Okay.
And so,
Yeah. And so that's kind of, where I was going to go with that. Is there, joining the military doesn't have to be a lifetime commitment. You know, there are various ways, like you said, you can go in a reserve component, you know, you go in guard, you can just, you know, enlist for, you know, the first 4 years or whatever to try it on to see if it's an environment, if it's a career, you know, that you want to take on. There are lots of benefits to it, but then you do have to realize that this is the military. So if something pops off, you know, then you are expected to go with it, you know. But I think people do themselves a disservice when they take other people's reactions, especially people who haven't served, you know, as a reason to not give it a try. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There are lots of things. I've seen so much growth in her as a person because she joined the military, you know, and I think it can be a really, really good space for some people.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. She called me 2 weeks ago? Yeah. Trying to get some help on the cameras out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She called me on FaceTime. I was like, who's this?
She will FaceTime.
And I was like,
FaceTime.
I was like, who is calling me? So I didn't answer. She had to text me. This is Jasmine. I was like, oh.
you clear the talk. All right, go ahead, call back.
That's funny.
So yeah, so listen, we want to thank you guys, and it's been fun. Every time that we get to hang out has been fun, except for that time on the boat. You know, I mean,
Well, next time we know, we just gonna crash. We're gonna pull the chairs up. We're gonna set the umbrella up, everything. I don't care what kind of vibe you live. The next podcast, we're like, man, we need to leave. Read the room. Didn't get the hint.
I just figured y'all had somewhere to go.
I mean, because they just jetted me. Yeah. It's like,
It was like, they gone? What happened? It's like, oh, maybe they had somewhere to go. We're right on back
all right, so listen, we appreciate you guys coming and checking us out on the Marriage Be Like podcast. Again, we want to thank Trevor and Latonia Powers.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. I mean, and this was really great. And listen, we will in the show notes. We'll make sure that we'll have more information about the
Military One Source.
Military One Source. Okay, so you can actually see that. But yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your service.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, man.
And for your service, you know.
Oh yeah.
It goes really like that. I know that's right. Oh, you can.
All right. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
checking out the Marriage Be Like podcast.
And thank you, Powers family.
Yes. We are on Envision Radio, envision-radio.com.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. .com.
.com. So, and then listen, you're listening live on the radio, but we are also on podcast, wherever you get your podcast.
So wait, we got to tell them. So it's every Thursday
Yes.
at 4:00 Eastern time.
That's right.
3:00 Central time
That's right.
on Envision
radio.com.
So
Right.
listen to us every week there. And then if you miss it, you can catch us on Friday.
On Friday at themarriagebelike.com
.com.
or wherever you get your podcast. Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music Podcasts, Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We everywhere. Everywhere.
Yes, make sure you tune in. Make sure you tell your friends, have them share it, so on and so forth, so that we can get the word out.
Yes. And you, like I said, we've got our website, marriagebelike.com. You can actually email the show at Kenny
and Kenya.
Yes, Kenny
And Kenya.
at marriagebelike.com. So listen, thank you again so much for checking out the podcast. And we look forward to meeting you this way again next week. So until
right.
then.
Bye-bye.